This video is brought to you by That's Just Prime, a Beast Wars podcast run by Arrowfire and Carnage Creation, going through every episode of the original 90s cartoon, as well as special episodes focusing on the toys and other memorabilia. I do recommend you go and check out Carnage Creation and give them a subscribe on YouTube as well. Hello everyone and welcome. Yes, my name is Arrowfire. Welcome to another episode of Look Out and Shout, where today we are reviewing DX9, my first DX9 toy, would you believe? Red Storm, their version of a G1 Sideswipe. Now it says DX9, but it does say on the box, Digital X-Town 9 Toys D21. On the back of the box and upside down you have some nice detail of the figure itself in robot and alt mode. Also worth pointing out is whilst this figure does not come with instructions, it does come with YouTube links to transformation videos. And I must admit, I didn't know that when I transformed the figure. I was working it out for myself. So yeah, it would have been good if maybe they publicised that a little bit or even released it widely ahead of time, but it was not until I looked at the back of the box that I realised it was there. And you too can pick up your own copy of this figure from ShowZStore.com, where, if you will be so kind, yes, fourth review in a row, so it's going to be the fourth plug in a row. If you go onto ShowZStore, please remember for your next purchase to use under the support your favourite reviewer code, the code of FIRE1, FYRE1, and any points you generate through your account will also be shared to my account, which in turn lead to further reviews. Thank you very much for everyone's ongoing support. Inside the box comes the figure itself along with accessories and also a collector's card with a nice image of him in robot mode and alt mode on the back with stats. And that's about it really. Without further ado, let's get into it. And here he is in his vehicle mode. We'll start with this because this is how he comes straight out of the box. It does have a sense of rough and ready, and maybe flimsiness. My first impressions in hand, taking it out of the box, was it feels very light, it feels very dainty, and I think, yeah, this is where I feel this might not be the absolute home run of all three Masterpiece Sideswipes on the market now. It's by no means bad. The red is very nice. I love particularly the tinted blue windows. It's a shame you can see some gubbins of the robot mode under the windscreen, but it is what it is. I can't get over, and I'll show you this more in a second, the back of the figure just looks very plasticky. And okay, yes, I know it's made of plastic, but it really does scream it. The definition towards the back of the car does seem less by comparison. The front of the car looks really good. Now obviously it's got the pop-up headlights, which look really good, very much like a real Lambo would. One of them, I think it's the left as you're looking at it, is really stiff on my one. It was hard work getting that up, so I'm not going to flop them up and down too many times. But it does have good ground clearance, it does have rubber tyres, it does roll, which is more than the Takara one would do. It just doesn't come across as absolutely perfect for me. But it looks nice enough for a very iconic Lamborghini Countach. Let's get in for a closer look. So you can see how reflective he is. Look at my light box shining off him. Underneath is fine, although one thing that does make me wary of transformation is the hands, how the thumb is kind of moved away from the fists, and that's how it's stored in alt mode. That looks a little bit hard work. So let me show you what I mean here. Do you see it? Just, there is definition around the engine grids, but it really does look plastic. There's no kind of black gubbins breaking it up. It's just solid red, and that's where it just comes across a little bit unfinished to me. I mean, it's by no means bad. I like kind of the blue tint on the fixed headlights. That looks quite good. Again, I love the blue tint used on the glass, but it's a shame you can see straight through it. And the back of the figure towards the tail lights are just a little bit unimaginative. I think when you got all for comparison, and I'll actually start with this now. I'll put this photo up on screen. This is taken from TM Reviews because I no longer have the Takara Sideswipe or the Bad Q1 in my collection. I think when you look at them, there is a lot to be said for the original Takara mould. That has kind of been the staple of Sideswipe for a long time. It is certainly an older figure and it really is showing its age and is desperately in need for an upgrade, but I do think the Lamborghini mode, the car mode, really holds up. I think they did a very good job. You could argue they should do because that's where the licenses were exchanged and likeness allowed to be used from Lamborghini, but things like the tail look really good, the rear spoiler, even the black bit on the centre of the hood looks good. It's square enough. My big problem with that mode or that model is the tyres. There is no clearance. and they end up scuffing. But I think sculpting-wise, it looks really good. I can also say the same for Bagcube. Whilst I don't think Bagcube is an absolute winner on all counts, I think, again, that is a very good-looking alt mode. I like how the front of the car looks with the kind of limited panel lines around the engine hood. You could argue it has a similar rear spoiler to the DX9 that's come out, but I think it looks nicer. I think the alloys look better on the wheels. Again, I just feel the build is right, and it again has the black markings on the roof of the car above the steering cockpit. By comparison, they've all got the same kind of engine flap on the side or the grid vents going on. I just feel DX9 comes across very basic by comparison. I think they could have done more detailing, particularly when you compare to Takara towards the back of the vehicle. Takara just has that little bit more definition to it, and the back of DX9 just looks a little bit more solid by comparison. I will say, for what it's worth, you can pose the rear wing on this. It's not fitted. I mean, that's how it kind of rests, but you can tilt it up for whatever reason, so you can have it angled for a little bit more definition. Now, I will say I forgot to apply them. He has his wing mirrors. With there being no instructions in this, it is a little difficult, but these are so tiny. But they should just plug in nice enough on the holes on the side of the doors. And there he is with them on. They look good. It looks better, but they are murder to put on, and I don't know, for the sake of travelling, maybe they would have broken off. They are a nightmare to pig in. I can't really get that one as far in as I would like. Could they have been just moulded on and packaged carefully? I don't think they would have snapped off. I don't recall the other two needing to do that. He does look better with it on, I will give him that, but it's by no means an absolute deal breaker, I suppose. I still think maybe Bagcube has got the better of the alt mode, or even Takara. I don't think there's anywhere else to store his accessories. I did wonder if there was a way to rear mount this, but looking at the back of the figure, there's some pinholes on the top, but there's nothing on the gun to relate to vehicle placement. There's no other grids for it to plug into, so I don't think there's a way to stick it on the back. So in terms of storage, I suppose the only thing you can use is the wing mirrors that you can attach on it. So it feels a bit limited otherwise, but that's how he looks nevertheless. Well, we've already done a Sideswipe comparison, but onto some others. Here he is alongside a similar one with the Takara one for Red Alert, just to give you a real side-by-side of it. This is a KO, this is terrible, but gives you an idea of what we're dealing with. There is quite a bit of difference, but do you see what I mean around the squareness of Takara? I feel this just catches a Lamborghini build better. This is very narrow by comparison, certainly when you put them side by side. I don't feel this is inherently bad, but I feel Takara got the alt mode right at least. And I don't think that many people will be storing Sideswipe in this mode, but it's just something I'm thinking that however old this mold is, you've got to be surpassing that. And we have not been flush for Sideswipes on the market. So yeah, I would have hoped it would have done a little better. Here he is alongside one of the Datsun Bros with Takara's smokescreen. Just to give you an idea of Carbot, really. They scale pretty well. They're good size. They're going to be in keeping if you have Prow, if you have Wheeljack, or anyone else. But two completely different cars. I mean, you want to see a comparison with Sideswipe, which I'll have to put a photo up of. But yeah, they look good enough. They scale well. It's very much of the Masterpiece Carbot scale. And of his red brother, here he is alongside Fans Toys Parkour, their version of Cliff Jumper. Different company, different bot, different scale, really. I know they're Masterpiece, but one's a mini bot. But that's how they scale. I do feel Fans Toys could have a go at Sideswipe, and I think the Lamborghini is going to be as much a challenge as everything else, maybe licenses or whatever, but I don't know if Fans Toys did Jazz, maybe they could do Sideswipe as well. We just haven't been flush for Sideswipes on the market, and it's been quite a long time. Whilst I'm glad DX9 or others are having a go at it, I think, yeah, we could have an X-Trans bot, so we could have a Fans Toys or even a Takara 2.0 by this point. But that's how they scale together. And there he is in his robot mode. It wasn't a fun transformation. A transformation without the instructions as well. It just feels annoying to do it that way. But anyway, you can work it out. You have to work it out. The legs are the hardest part. I think other people have said that as well. Just not what you'd expect from a Masterpiece Carbot. Some things maybe go into a bit more of a logical position, and the way the side panels that fold inside the legs, how they cascade up and make up the side panels, the doors of the car, odd choices. I can't say I hate it when it's all done though, and I do think this is the better of the two modes. It's just got a couple of very weird choices that I'll show you in a minute, but once you get everything tabbed in, it does hold. There is a couple of odd annoyances, like around the ankles in particular. He does tend to want to rest towards the back of the feet rather than on the front of the toes, so he's more back leaning-ish. He's not back heavy, but you just have to do a bit of adjustments from the hips to the knees to the ankles to get everything flush, otherwise he looks a little crooked. But other than that, I think the sculpting looks good. I like the slanted shoulders. I think that kind of sets him apart from the other two offerings from Takara and Bagcube. I think overall it does a really good job. I haven't got any issues with tolerances. It all lines up pretty well. Just, if you're not going to provide transformation instructions, then I wouldn't mind if it was an easier transformation than this, but it was a little bit harder to work out. You did have to work it out, and you would think Carbot transformations shouldn't be difficult. This just took a little bit longer than expected, and yeah, a few instructions wouldn't have gone amiss. But let's get in for a closer look. Now what you'll see is there's a lot of faux paneling going on the chest, so let me show you this straight away. These hinges, if I get the light on these metal hinges, they kind of slide, and that is the bonnet of the car that kind of flops off in two separate panels, and they do start to flap around, and then you're required to tab them in at the bottom and get them over on the top, and then get this panel that's on the fixed inner chest to line up. You can work out an A to B, but it's not just a simple case of cascading a top down and just folding it down. You've got to fold these things along, but get them down a rail, plug in these black pieces into this tiny little red square at the top that locks in the back that arguably isn't necessary. So there's just a few funny choices. Again, what's worth mentioning about the head, there you go. The side of the head is stored like that. It's narrow, and you kind of put in the side panel to give him his ears. I will say that the head sculpt is brilliant, possibly the best thing about the feature. It kind of, again, gives it its own identity to the rest of it. But then tabbing in the gun on the shoulder is a little bit tricky, but then it was on the Takara version as well. You just put it in on these side rail, there it is on the other side, you just slide it across, and it's a very sizable gun. I will say, once you lock everything in, it can restrict some parts of articulation. So for example, with this chest piece locked in and this side cannon, he now can't move that shoulder up. You can do for the likes of this, and that is more to kind of arch the hinge all the way down on the inner part. You just see the black inner part of the shoulder there, so you end up kind of making up other allowances to do so, but it just there, you have to get that fully set, but it will hamper on some clearance. Tolerances can maybe be over tight in some areas, or more tight than you think. Not like it's going to break, but it just requires a bit of additional shoving. But otherwise things are pretty good. Waist articulation and an ab crunch, which is very nice. Head articulation can look up, can't really look down. What is a bit annoying, because this on the back of the neck kind of stops the head from tilting to the side and then looking back. It starts to kind of bump into it a little bit, so it will work, but some poses aren't forthcoming. Lift up the hip skirts, no ratchets on this at all, it's completely friction. 90, you get a little over 90 for a knee bend. Ankle tilt, yes, but it is stiff, and it starts to move this inner white piece in doing so, which can cause untransformations of the inner of the leg. Finger articulation is pretty good. It's a bend at the knuckle, but not individual finger moving. The thumb moves quite nicely, and it doesn't feel like it's going to snap anytime soon. So it definitely has got some plus points. Now obviously you'll see he's got his big accessory on, but we'll go through some of his others that he comes with. He does come with his gun, which is fairly typical for Sideswipe. He has a very set gun to do so. You have to open up the hand, tuck in the thumb, using the groove on the palm of the hand. And I would say he can only go in one way, because the peg is only on one side of the gun, but I said that about Ultra Magnus and people still found a way. But at least to the naked eye, that's how he is holding it. And it's a good looking gun. He can get some good poses holding in two hands of it. Takes a bit of jiggery pokery, but it does work. Now for his other accessories that he comes with are his pile drivers of sorts, or his drill hands, except they are actual axes or drills. He actually holds them. I'm not aware of Sideswipe actually holding them, but he can in this mode. And there he is holding them. You can extend them out from the base of the holster. I will say for the thumbs, it's worth kind of putting them completely to the side rather than tucking them down. Otherwise, I just find it gets a bit too narrow and you can't always get them in because it's slightly thicker on the peg end to go into the palm of the hand otherwise. It's an odd choice. I can't say I hate it though. He certainly looks very menacing to have portable hammers as opposed to replacements for the hand. It's just a funny choice. And obviously if he's holding both of these, he can't hold his gun. I don't think there is any gun storage anywhere else on him other than maybe with the hole on the side. You can put it on the side of his shoulder. I mean, I don't know if you're meant to do that, but it is a way of holding all of his weapons at once. It looks a bit odd, doesn't it? But yeah, if you didn't want any accessories lying around, he is wearing them all. Both guns. He has his wing mirrors in his alt mode, which disappear into the chest, as well as both his hammers, so he can hold everything he comes with. Okay, on to some comparisons. Now again, I haven't got the Takara or Bagcube version anymore, so I'll just put up this image from TM Reviews, who did this when the figure was released. The Takara robot mode very much is showing its age and was limited in robot mode even at the time. It did very much okay things, but nothing more. You could certainly tell it was wearing its car pieces as well. The chest that looked very good in alt mode certainly didn't transcribe so well in robot mode. And it just came across a bit basic, and it's been a mold that's been reused time after time and is looking very tired. So a slenderness that DX9 has does carry it a little bit better. Bagcube, I never felt Bagcube had a good robot mode. I always felt something looked off about it. I felt the head looked wrong. I felt it just looked very narrow, very tall, and it didn't carry it. Even though there was a couple of things it did do better than Takara, it didn't blow it out of the water. With it being the only other gig in town, if you wanted to go for an upgrade and if Sideswipe was a particular favourite, it was the only option you can go with. So now DX9 comes along, and I think the head is brilliant, the accessories is good, even if it's not perfect and has got a bit of an odd transformation, which does make me yearn for the Takara one more. If you want a robot mode for the here and now, DX9 is the one that goes on your shelf. I think it could be bettered. I can see Fans Toys or even Takara doing a better version of this, maybe even X-Transbots. I think it does a good job though for the three offerings that are out there, and it's probably worth upgrading if you've got either of the two, just to get that toon accuracy or just modern engineering in your collection. For other comparisons, here he is alongside Takara Masterpiece Trax, different vehicle mode, but same style in keeping. You can see that Trax is taller, more or less he is kind of backpack doing a lot of the work. I do not think this is my favourite figure by any stretch of the imagination, but he is somewhat in keeping. You can imagine them side by side, but again, two different companies, and that's really what we're going to focus on in these comparisons. Here he is alongside Make Toys Downbeat for their Jazz. Possibly this is starting to show its age, although I do have a real soft spot for it. I think Jazz should be a little bit taller, that maybe the Fans Toys version is better equipped to do so, but I do really like this figure. Again, you can see the similarities though. Masterpiece Carbot, it is very much one of the other. They're there or thereabouts. I can imagine them alongside one another. And the two brothers side by side. Two completely different companies with the Takara Sunstreaker and the DX9 Sideswipe. Now I feel we got another problem. Whereas when this Sunstreaker came out, the Sideswipe that was released from Takara looked completely old hat by comparison to Sunstreaker. Now if anything it's the other way around. I think this is still good and still perfectly fine. This always struck me as over-engineered from a Takara Carbot stance. I felt it was too much going on. There's a lot in the backpack, and it's not to say this guy was by any means easier to transform, but there's less moving parts maybe. Maybe Sunstreaker's alt mode carries a lot more baggage. They look really cool together because we know the characters, we know their colour schemes going on, but their approaches are different. You can tell very much they are two different companies, and I guess that comes across as a bit of a shame because they are two I want to put side by side. But this is always bound to happen when two different companies have the same approach. They don't always complement one another when you get two characters who should complement one another anyway. They by no means look bad, but they're certainly not cut from the same cloth. So what is my view on Red Stormy Daniels? It wasn't impressing me fresh out of the box, and I think there are some things about it that just feels a bit loose and limited, and there's things about it I just feel could be done better, particularly when I held the Make Toys Downbeat Jazz I felt that could have been more akin to that. The deftness, the heft, the elements of die-cast. I'm not necessarily wanting 100% die-cast Sideswipe. I don't think that's practical. I don't think it's reasonable. But things like the legs feel very shallow. It does feel noticeably very plastic, and I felt that in alt mode as well, particularly when I looked at the back of the figure. It just looked very cut molded plastic, and that was it. Very no thrills, very no excitement. Once the transformation was done, and I don't think it was an amazing transformation, it's possibly not the worst I've ever experienced, but it certainly wasn't the best. I can't say I hate the robot mode. There's things about it I like. I like the posability to it. I love the fact his rocket cannon is absolutely huge, but the head is brilliant. That kind of earpiece is used either side that folds out in transformation into this mode. It's the best he's looked in a masterpiece representation of Sideswipe, and maybe only Chug version is the one that's running him close. It's got rubber tyres, it's got everything else you would kind of need. I like the hammer accessories that he can kind of hold. That's a bit different. I like the fact that you can store the gun on the shoulder similar to his cannon. Whether you mean to or not is up for debate. So there is storage here. There's things about it I really do like. Posability is good. Maybe not hyper posing, but ab crunches, you know, there's enough stuff there. Maybe a bit of limited articulation around the head. Things like that, I just want a little bit of tidying up. As I say, this is my first DX9 figure. And whilst I know of them by reputation, maybe not to be an absolute home run, maybe not to be the pinnacle of third-party Transformers, it does a job. I'm just not certain that it absolutely takes the crown of the best Sideswipe. It probably is the best robot mode, but if people have got the bag queue version and they want to keep with that, I can understand that. I think this does a job. I think it is just another offering, and as I said throughout the review, I can see a Takara doing a 2.0, I can see an X-Transbots, and I can see, I don't know, whoever else, probably Fans Toys, having a go at Sideswipe and maybe doing it better. But without doubt, it's a figure that's been called out for a better representation than what we've had, and it's good that it is the third offering on the market. He is a fairly beloved character, but I do think he is noticeably different to Sunstreaker now, just as Sunstreaker was to the original Takara release. There is quite a gap between the two Takara releases, and now there is a gap from Sunstreaker to this. Price-wise, I think it's fair. I think it's probably somewhere between a Bag Cube and Takara, and if you want to get the KO for £20–30, by all means, it's all right. It's fine. I think this is what I'm just thinking with it is, it's good. It probably does things better than its two counterparts, but not everything. It still is questionable as to whether the alt mode is better. I still think the Takara alt mode is the better of the two. The robot mode, on the other hand, I feel this is the best looking one, but I don't feel it's unbeatable. I think someone else could come along and do a better job, but it's possibly the best one out there. Based on this, I give this guy 3 Rodimus Star badges. It's just kind of okay, it's good. And I'm glad I've got him, because at the moment I haven't got a Sideswipe in my collection, save a Blockies one. And this fills a gap for me. But I feel this will do for now, but I feel the same around Takara, Prowl and Wheeljack, and maybe even Hound to a point. I feel there will be better offers available in the fullness of time that I will swap this guy out for someone else. But for the here and now, he'll stay there. He'll stand alongside Sunstreaker, and let's just hope that someone else has a go at Sunstreaker to bring him a little bit more in line. And there we go, that is my review of DX9's Red Storm, their version of a G1 Sideswipe. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share and hit that subscribe button, because I will see you on the next one.